From his post near the gates, a royal guard watched it all. At first, it looked like harmless fun. But then he saw the way Diddy moved, the way he lingered, the words he whispered, and that's when the guard took a single step forward, breaking protocol in front of hundreds of people. What did he see? And why, even months before the world knew anything, did that one guard know something was wrong? Before we answer that, press the subscribe button and comment below where in the world you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. From his post near the southeast gate of Buckingham Palace, Staff Sergeant Reese Calloway watched the crowd as he had for years, still, composed, yet alert in ways most would never notice. The October sun pierced through London's usual grey veil, casting a regal glow across the palace grounds. Tourists jostled 5 deep behind ceremonial ropes, snapping photos and pointing excitedly at the crimson-clad soldiers standing like statues. Reese Calloway wasn't just another soldier in a decorative uniform. He was a Coldstream Guard, 43 years old with a face lined by 2 decades of hard-earned experience. 2 tours in Afghanistan, counterinsurgency in Northern Ireland, and a scar trailing from his temple to jawline told a silent story of vigilance, sacrifice, and survival. The kind of man who didn't just follow orders, he trusted instinct sharpened by years of standing at the edge of danger. That morning, his pale blue eyes scanned the crowd with methodical precision. A jittery teen clutching his backpack too tightly. A man filming the same spot for too long. A couple whispering under their breath. Reese had long since learned that threats didn't always come with raised voices or gunshots. Sometimes, danger wore designer sunglasses and a $1 million smile. Then it happened. A convoy of glossy black Range Rovers rolled onto the cobblestones, and the crowd surged like a wave before a storm. Phones rose like periscopes. Shouts turned to screams. "Oh my God! That's Diddy!" Someone yelled. The rear door of the lead vehicle opened, and out stepped the legend himself, Shah Diddy Combs, wearing a flawless Armani suit and a PC Philippe watch that caught the morning sun like a diamond flare. Diddy's smile was a masterpiece of performance. A walking empire, a global celebrity, and a master of the crowd. Teenage girls screamed. Grown men elbowed for selfies. Even children who barely knew his name shouted in joy just because everyone else was. But while most saw only glitz, Calloway saw something else. From 20 yards away, Calloway observed the subtle movements, the curated charisma, the perfectly orchestrated gestures. A palace protocol officer exchanged quiet words with Diddy's security team. Apparently, this visit had been cleared, fully approved. The pop icon was allowed to greet fans outside the gates. On paper, it was harmless, even encouraged. After all, what better PR than a superstar charming the crowds at Buckingham? Diddy played the crowd like a seasoned politician. He signed autographs, cracked jokes, posed with families and kissed hands like royalty. He made old women blush and teenage girls swoon. He tousled a boy's hair and flirted with fans. He was dazzling, magnetic, and Calloway didn't trust a second of it. The first thing that caught his eye was subtle. Diddy crouched down to pose for a photo with 2 girls, maybe 11 or 12. Reese noticed how Diddy's hand rested just a touch too low on one girl's back. How it lingered a second too long. Her smile faltered. She subtly shifted away. Most wouldn't have noticed. Reese did. Then came the second moment. A boy handed Diddy a toy soldier. Diddy laughed, accepted it, and whispered something in the boy's ear. The boy blinked. Then smiled awkwardly and nodded. His parents, standing nearby, beamed with pride, snapping photos of their child's brush with fame. They had no idea what had just been said. Reese didn't have evidence. Just patterns. Tells. A sixth sense forged on foreign battlefields and sharpened by years of watching people closely, closer than they knew. What he felt wasn't fear. It was something older. Recognition. That quiet alarm that rings in your soul when the facts haven't caught up to the truth yet, but the truth is there, something was wrong. And it was about to get worse. Then came the moment that told Calloway everything he needed to know. A teenage girl approached Diddy for a selfie. He smiled, charming as ever, and pulled her into a side hug. They posed. She laughed. But as she walked away, Reese saw Diddy's gaze follow her, not with polite interest, but with something hungrier, darker, and then their eyes met, not a casual glance. Not the brief eye contact shared between strangers in a crowd. This was deliberate. A meeting of minds. A quiet duel. For the first time, Diddy saw Calloway watching him, not like a fan, not like palace staff, but like someone who knew. Diddy's smile never wavered, but beneath it, something else flickered. A flicker of contempt. Calculation. A smirk that said, "I see you, and I don't care." It was the kind of look Calloway had seen before. In dusty alleys of Kabul. In smoky interrogation rooms. In the eyes of men who'd done unspeakable things and didn't fear consequence, the tension stretched between them, silent, charged. And then Diddy turned away, sliding back into the role of beloved icon, draping his arm over a new fan, flashing that smile for another camera. But for Reese Calloway, the mask had slipped, something dangerous had entered the palace courtyard. And this time, it wasn't wearing a uniform or carrying a weapon. It was hiding behind fame. That's when Myri appeared. She couldn't have been older than 9, with wispy brown hair tied into neat braids with pink ribbons. She wore a denim jacket adorned with colorful band patches, names she probably didn't even know yet, and clutched a spiral notebook to her chest like it was treasure. Her parents had stepped away just moments before, engaged in conversation with a palace staff member near the gift shop. They were only 20 feet away, close enough to believe she was safe, far enough to miss what was about to happen. Diddy spotted her immediately. Predators always spot the isolated ones. He crouched down, voice warm and melodic, the way adults speak when they want children to trust them. "Well, look who we have here," he said, that winning smile sliding across his face like butter on glass. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Myri beamed. "I'm Myri. I drew you a picture." She offered her notebook with both hands, eyes wide, full of pride and excitement. Diddy flipped through the pages with performative awe. "You made all of this for me. This is incredible work." She nodded so hard her braids bounced. He pulled her into a hug. Cameras clicked. Tourists sighed with admiration. It was the kind of moment people would describe for years afterward, how they had witnessed a superstar being kind to a child. But Calloway watched it like a sniper watches for movement in the grass. The hug looked innocent. Brief. Proper, but then Diddy didn't fully let go. He kept a hand gently on her shoulder. Leaned in. Whispered something. Myri giggled and covered her mouth. They posed for a selfie. "Say superstar," he said, "super." She chirped, her missing front tooth made it adorable. Everyone around thought they were watching a beautiful moment. Only Reese saw the shadows underneath. The warning signs were subtle. Almost imperceptible. When Myri stepped back slightly, just half a step, it wasn't retreat. Not exactly. But it was the kind of movement children make when something changes and they don't know how to explain why it feels wrong. Diddy placed his hand gently on her back. Nudged her closer. Just enough pressure to keep her within reach. Within control. It didn't look sinister. It looked like affection, and that's what made it dangerous. "I love your songs," she said. "I have all of them on my iPad. My dad lets me play them on long trips." "Your dad's got great taste," Diddy replied, chuckling. "I bet you're the coolest kid in your school." She giggled. "My teacher lets me play music during art time. The other kids think I have the best songs." Diddy's smile deepened. His voice dropped. You know what would be really cool? What if I came to pick you up from school one day? Can you imagine their faces? Myri blinked, uncertain. He painted the fantasy, limo, screaming classmates, instant stardom. "You'd be the most famous girl in town," he whispered. "But it'd have to be our little secret." Reese Calloway's heart pounded. He'd heard those exact patterns before, different words, different faces, but the same manipulation. This was grooming, the textbook method predators used to build trust, isolate the child, and normalize secrecy. Praise. Fantasy. Isolation. Secrets, all veiled in charm, all disarming by design. To the crowd, it looked like a dream. To Calloway, it was a predator weaving a net. Diddy took a small step toward the velvet rope separating public space from restricted ceremonial ground. One more step would place him and Myri out of full view, in a pocket of the courtyard where visibility was limited, where it would only take a few seconds to vanish into something untraceable. Myri followed, hesitant, confused, but still smiling. She didn't know she had a choice. She was just a little girl meeting her hero, and that's when Reese Calloway made the decision that would define the rest of his career. He moved, not with a shout, not with a sprint, but with measured purpose. His boots struck the cobblestones like thunder in a quiet room. The sound sliced through the noise of the crowd. Gasps followed in waves. The guard moved, someone whispered, as if witnessing a statue come to life. Calloway approached with the calm intensity of a man who had seen death too closely to doubt his instincts now. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice sharp and commanding. "The child stays on this side of the rope." Diddy froze mid-step. His smile didn't fade. It transformed, into something more theatrical, more media-ready. "Easy there, soldier," he laughed, raising both hands in mock surrender. "We're just talking. She's a fan. I'm making her day." Myri looked up at Reese, puzzled. "He's really nice," she said softly. "He's my favorite singer." Reese's gaze didn't leave Diddy. But his tone softened. "I'm sure he's being nice. But you need to stay where your parents can see you." Diddy chuckled again, still charming. "Come on, man. Don't make this weird." Calloway didn't flinch. "She'll remember this moment," he said, voice flat and resolute. "Let's make sure it's for the right reasons." Behind them, staff began to notice. A protocol officer started walking over. Security stiffened. Tourists filmed, murmuring, but Diddy knew how to play it off. He gave Myri one last wink. "Right, superstar? Keep drawing those pictures." She nodded, her excitement dulled by confusion, and just like that, the magic cracked, and the danger passed. As the moment dissolved, Myri's parents returned, arms full of palace gift shop bags, cheeks flushed with excitement. Her mother gasped when she saw the superstar standing near her daughter. "Oh my goodness. Is that really Shaw Combs?" "We got some great pictures," Diddy replied smoothly, flashing that perfect smile. He handed Myri's notebook back. "Like a king bestowing a treasure. She's incredibly talented, drew me some amazing artwork." Her father glanced between Diddy and the guard. He could feel something unspoken in the air but didn't understand it. "She's been looking forward to this for months," he said nervously. "I hope she wasn't asking too much." "Not at all," Diddy replied, still the model of public charm. "Just had a lovely chat about music and art. She's got a bright future." Then he knelt one last time to Myri's level. "You keep drawing and listening to good music, okay?" he said, gently tapping the notebook she now held tightly to her chest. "And remember what I said, special fans get special treatment." She nodded again, quieter now, not glowing with joy like before. Diddy stood up, waved to the crowd, and walked back toward his waiting convoy. His security team closed in around him in practiced formation, dark suits and mirrored lenses, as rehearsed and precise as a royal parade. But just before Diddy climbed into the black Range Rover, he looked back, his eyes found Reese Calloway across the courtyard, held there for just a second too long, no smile now. No charm. Just acknowledgement, not anger. Not fear. Just a cold calculation. A mental bookmark. You interrupted my game, then the door closed with a smooth, engineered hush, and the convoy slid away into London traffic, leaving behind nothing but echoes, perfume, and uncertainty. Calloway walked back to his post with the same unshaken rhythm, boots returning to position, posture resetting into ceremonial stillness. To the crowd, it looked like the moment was over, drama dissolved, normalcy restored. Some tourists replayed the footage they had just captured. Others shrugged and turned their attention back to the palace guards, snapping more photos, laughing again. But Myri stood still. She looked up at the tall soldier who had stepped forward when no one else had. Her small fingers curled around the spiral notebook pressed to her chest. "Why did you do that?" she asked quietly. Reese didn't respond. He couldn't. He was still on duty, still bound by protocol, already stretched to its limit. But his eyes met hers with a steady gaze that spoke volumes. It wasn't a look meant for a child to understand. But maybe she did, in a way only children can. After a pause, she turned and walked back to her parents, who were already discussing their next stop on the tourist trail as if nothing had happened. The rest of Calloway's shift passed uneventfully. The sun tracked across the autumn sky. Shadows stretched across the cobblestones. The crowds came and went, smiles in their cameras and tea bags in their shopping bags. The palace routines carried on, timeless, polished, unchanged, but something had shifted, not in the ceremony, in the quiet space between what the world sees and what actually happens. That evening, after the palace gates were closed and his shift ended, Calloway was summoned to his commanding officer's office. The room was every bit as formal as you'd expect. Polished brass fixtures, worn mahogany desk, and a single manila folder sitting neatly at the center. Colonel Henderson didn't look up immediately. "Calloway," he said, scanning papers. "You broke protocol today." "Yes, sir." "Stepped away from your post." "Spoke on ceremonial duty." "Interrupted a sanctioned VIP engagement without chain of command clearance." "Yes, sir." The colonel finally looked up. His expression unreadable. "You understand why we have these protocols?" "I do, sir." A long pause. "The kind that lives in the space between rule and reason." Then, the colonel leaned back in his chair. His voice softened, not by emotion, but by something harder to define. "Respect, maybe. We don't train instinct out of good soldiers," he said quietly. "We pray they'll know when to trust it." He closed the folder without ever opening it. The gesture said more than any punishment could. "I'm not putting this in your record. But don't make a habit of creative interpretation." "Yes, sir." Dismissed. No reprimand. No write-up. Just a memory, of a line crossed, perhaps, but crossed for the right reason. That night, Reese sat alone in his small barracks room, polishing his ceremonial boots by habit. His hands moved in slow, circular rhythms, but his thoughts circled something else entirely, back to the rope line, back to the giggle behind a whisper. Back to the question that had haunted him ever since the convoy disappeared. What if I was wrong? What if he had overreacted? As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Reese Calloway couldn't escape the question echoing in the back of his mind. What if I was wrong? What if all he had done was embarrass an innocent little girl in front of her hero? What if he'd undermined a beloved public figure who was simply trying to bring joy to his fans? What if Myri had gone home confused and disappointed, her magical moment shattered by the suspicious nature of one overcautious soldier? He played the moment over and over in his head. The hug, the whispered promises. The secret invitations. Was it possible that he had let years of combat service and trauma cloud his judgment? That the darkness he'd witnessed had made him see ghosts where there were none? Shaw Combs had left without incident, no press coverage. No investigations. No headlines, at the palace, the moment faded as quickly as it had come. Not one mention appeared in the after-action briefings or ceremonial debriefs. No one followed up. No one asked questions. Tourists moved on to their next destinations. The memory of the celebrity visit became just another story told over dinner tables and social media timelines. And Myri? She likely returned to school, showed off her photo, and told her friends she met her favorite singer. Maybe she left out the part where a guard stepped in, or maybe she didn't even understand why it happened, but Reese remembered. Every detail. Every look. Every hesitation. He clung to one quiet hope, that he had been wrong, and yet, that if he wasn't, he had acted before it was too late. Then, one cold morning in March, 6 months later, everything changed. Reese was in the palace mess hall, sipping lukewarm coffee and reading through the daily briefings on his tablet. The mess was quiet, the usual shuffle of routine. Outside, a soft London rain tapped gently against the windows. Then he saw the headline, Music mogul Shah, Diddy, Combs indicted on federal trafficking, racketeering charges. His blood turned to ice. He tapped the screen again to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Article after article appeared, each more damning than the last. Federal investigations. Multi-state operations. Lawsuits from victims. Allegations spanning decades. Words leapt from the screen. Grooming behaviors, manipulation, coercion, systematic exploitation. One report mentioned public encounters with minors, citing smiles, whispered promises, fan interactions, and patterns that had seemed innocent, until examined in full context. Calloway didn't speak. He didn't move. His coffee went cold beside him. There was no mention of Buckingham Palace. No nod to the royal guard who had noticed the signs long before the world caught on. No recognition for a decision that may have saved a little girl from a future too horrific to imagine, and Reese didn't want it. He didn't need vindication, just the quiet confirmation that his instincts, his training, hadn't betrayed him. He closed the news tab, folded his hands over the scratched mess hall table, and exhaled slowly through his nose, not in relief, in resolve. Somewhere in London, a little girl named Myri was getting ready for school. Probably listening to different music now. Probably never realizing just how close she came to stepping across a line she'd never come back from, and that was enough. He never spoke of it again. There was no ceremony. No medal. No official acknowledgement, just the memory of a choice, made in silence, in defiance of procedure, and in full awareness of what it might cost him. Because sometimes, the most important battles aren't fought in deserts or war zones. They happen in courtyards. In crowds. In quiet, unremarkable moments when something feels off, and someone decides to act anyway. Sometimes, danger doesn't announce itself with weapons or threats. Sometimes it arrives in a luxury car, flashes a charming smile, and tells a child she's special. And sometimes, the only thing standing between innocence and exploitation is one man's willingness to break the rules for the right reasons. Calloway returned to his duties as before. Still, silent, ceremonial. But something had changed. Not in his posture, not in the crispness of his uniform, but in the weight behind his eyes. The kind that comes from having seen too much, and from knowing you acted when no one else could. Myri may never know how close she came to vanishing behind a velvet rope, but she walked home with her parents that day, because one soldier chose to see what no one else would. The days rolled on, the tourists returned, the cameras clicked, and the red-coated guards resumed their motionless presence at the gates. Ceremonial routines continued with the precision of centuries. The palace didn't change. The city didn't change, but something inside Reese Calloway had. He still polished his boots every night. Still stood with perfect posture. Still scanned the crowds with calm precision. But he carried something new now, an awareness that no protocol manual could teach and no medal could validate. The knowledge that he had acted when no one else did, and yet, doubt still lingered in the background like a stubborn shadow, not doubt about Diddy anymore. The headlines had erased all ambiguity there. but doubt about how close the world had come to letting something evil continue in plain sight. About how easy it was for charm, fame, and power to disguise something predatory. About how many times the signs had been missed, because no one wanted to be the one who spoke up without evidence. That day in the courtyard had passed like any other. No alarms were raised. No official record noted the breach in decorum. There were no media articles about a guard who broke rank. And Myri? She probably told her story like most children do, edited for magic, blurry in the details, but she was home. Safe, and Reese had no intention of ever needing thanks for that. To the world, the royal guards are figures of tradition, unflinching, stoic, almost ornamental. They are symbols, not people. The kind of thing tourists pose next to, not engage with, but underneath the uniform is still a soldier, and soldiers don't just stand for show, they are trained to read signs others miss. Trained to respond when something isn't right. And sometimes, that training demands more than stillness and silence. Sometimes it demands stepping forward when everyone else stands still. Calloway didn't need applause. He didn't need his name in the paper or his face on the news. All he needed was what no one else saw, the difference his instinct had made, because the line between ceremony and chaos is thinner than it looks. It's marked by velvet ropes, perhaps, but also by vigilance. And somewhere in London, a little girl still carried a notebook filled with crayon drawings. She might have forgotten the exact words exchanged that day. Might not fully understand what was prevented. Might even think the soldier overreacted, but she went home with her parents, and that was enough. Months later, long after the headlines had faded and the story of Diddy's downfall had been replaced by the next scandal, Reese Calloway stood at his post once more. The light shifted across the cobblestones, the flags rippled in the breeze, and tourists leaned over ropes, waiting for something ceremonial to happen, but the real ceremony had already taken place, not in the pageantry or the uniforms, but in the moment one man chose action over assumption. One man chose instinct over comfort. One man broke protocol to protect what mattered most. Not every story has a hero in armor or a villain in chains. Some unfold quietly. In sunlight. In front of crowds. And the only thing that decides the outcome is whether someone pays attention. Would you have noticed? Would you have trusted your gut? Or would you have smiled with the crowd, taken a picture, and walked away? We all want to believe we do the right thing. But the right thing doesn't always come with sirens. Sometimes, it arrives softly. Wrapped in fame. Disguised as kindness. And it takes someone truly watchful to see what's hidden underneath, because in the end, it's not medals or rules that define a guard, it's what he chooses to protect when no one's looking, and sometimes, that choice is the only reason a child makes it home. If you enjoy this content, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Your subscription means a lot to me and gives me great motivation to make more videos. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the video.